When a little girl told a young homeless woman, "I need a mommy," this shocking truth hauntsa hushed city corner, shrouded in the twilight shadows, became the backdrop for a chilling encounter. A little girl, big eyes sparkling with lost hope, approached a young homeless woman, her voice barely a whisper. "I need a mommy," she said. The words hung heavy in the air, echoing past the distant sirens and the flickering streetlights. This wasn't just a plea. It felt like a cry for salvation, one that sent shivers down the spine of those nearby. As the girl's small frame trembled in the evening chill, the woman Jade couldn't help but feel a tightness in her chest. Underneath her ragged clothes and dirt-smudged skin lay layers of pain and secrets, hidden like fragile glass beneath rough stone. The streets had seen Jade's laughter turn into silent tears, and now this child's innocent cry opened wounds she thought had long since crusted over. Around them, the world was a blur of color and sound. A metro train rumbled past, raucous laughter from a nearby bar penetrated the stillness, and shadows danced under a neon light. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. Jade dropped her head, her long hair spilling like a curtain to shield her from the raw vulnerability of what had just been said. Who was this girl? Why would she need a mother? The questions swirled, thick and heavy, in the air between them, but it didn't end there. The bustling crowd that brushed their shoulders against one another suddenly seemed to halt. Muffled whispers erupted as onlookers chattered in a mix of concern and disbelief. Did you hear that? What kind of mother would abandon her? They all wondered what sort of twisted fate had brought them to this moment. Jade's heart pounded. Could the girl possibly know her truth? The warmth she felt at the girl's words ignited a pain deep within one that made her shake with unease. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the whispers quieted to shocked gasps, Jade looked into the girl's eyes wide, trusting, unknowingly pleading. In that instant, the city around them faded, and it felt like they were the only two souls in the universe, bound by an unseen thread. What did the little girl see in her? Could the girl be a reflection of her own long-buried dreams? A heartbeat raced in the silence, and just as Jade opened her mouth to speak, a rough voice broke through the lingering tension. "Hey, you can't just talk to her." An imposing figure loomed, and just like that, everything shifted. Panic surged as Jade remembered why she had to keep her distance from the world. But deep inside, a small flicker of hope ignited. Would the girl's words change everything? What was she willing to risk to find out? Jade's heart raced as the rough voice, a man with a scruffy beard and tattered clothes, stepped closer, blocking her from the girl. She felt her breath hitch, an instinctual terror clutching her throat. The crowd shifted uneasily, their collective gaze darting between Jade and the stranger. "Move along, lady," he barked, eyes narrowing. "Kids shouldn't be talking to He looked Jade up and down. "A person like you." But the girl didn't budge, her gaze still locked on Jade. She looked like a tiny deer caught in headlights, yet there was an unwavering strength in her little frame. Jade couldn't tear her eyes away. There was something unrecognizable in the girl's expression that felt like a lifeline. Could she actually bridge the chasm of the past? "Please," the girl whispered, her voice trembling like fragile glass. "I just need to find my mommy." The words hit Jade like a freight train, tearing down the walls she had built to survive. Memories flooded back. The laughter, the warmth, the crushing guilt of what she had lost. But how could she offer the comfort that this child craved when she herself felt so utterly lost? "Get out of here," the man demanded again, this time his voice perpetuating an unyielding growl. Fear pierced through Jade, making her muscles tighten. Yet she sensed the girl's sorrow, echoing her own. The moment teetered on a knife's edge. Jade's eyes darted to the crowd. The onlookers murmured, a mixture of pity and judgment crossing their faces. Would they intervene? Did they care? The weight of their assumptions clawed at her. She was a ghost in their eyes, an epitome of failure. Wait. Jade finally found her voice, raw and shaky. Please, I can help you. The man took a step back, surprise flickering across his face. And in that brief pause, the little girl moved closer to Jade, sealing a connection that could never have been predestined. Jade reached out, brushing the girl's hand gently, a fragile hope igniting within her. But the stranger's eyes turned dark, like thunderclouds about to unleash a storm. I told you to back off. You don't know what you're getting into. He advanced again, aggression radiating off him like heat. Jade's pulse quickened, panic rising to a fever pitch. Please, the girl's voice was soft, quivering at the edges. I need you. The world around them began to melt away again. All Jade could focus on was the urgency in the girl's eyes, a reflection of her own lost childhood. And the stranger, he wasn't just an obstacle. He was a monstrous reminder of everything that could go wrong. With a surge of bravery, Jade took a step forward, standing her ground. No, she needs someone who cares. But the moment hung heavy, teetering on uncertainty. A shift in the crowd's energy drew the attention of nearby police officers, who stepped forward to investigate the scene. Jade's heart dropped. What would they see? Would they understand? Or would they merely view her as a worthless derelict, unworthy of compassion? Just stay close. She urged the girl, the bond forged in that fleeting moment solidifying like steel. As the officers approached, their heavy boots echoed ominously against the pavement. Would her secret be exposed? Would her chance to connect vanish into thin air? But as she stood there, a powerful thought gripped her heart. What if this little girl could lead her to something brighter? What would it mean to chase away the shadows of her past? Glancing at the little girl, Jade felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but also the glimmer of a new beginning. The officers paused, surveying the scene. What was their next move? Jade drew a deep breath, feeling more alive than she had in years. She stood ready, amidst the chaos, ready to fight for not only the girl's hope, but her own. But as the first officer reached for his radio, Jade felt the ground tremble beneath her. What awaited her beyond this moment? Would she find freedom or fate? And the girl's heart-wrenching plea lingered in the air. Please, don't let them take me away. Jade felt the air thicken around her. She couldn't afford to falter now. The crowd's murmur turned into a buzzing swarm of anxious whispers. Eyes were on her, not only judging but weighing her worth against their own lives. Could they ever understand what she had lost? As the officer's hand lingered over the radio, Jade's resolve deepened. The moment was alive with electric tension, like the seconds before a storm. Please, just trust me. She urged the girl, squeezing her hand tighter. The small fingers responded with a gentle grip, reassuring and desperate all at once. The man with the scruffy beard sneered and lunged forward, his body coiling like a snake ready to strike. Get away from her, he commanded, his voice a knife slicing through the fragile air. The little girl flinched and slid closer to Jade, seeking refuge. Everyone just calm down, one of the officers said, stepping into the fray. Broad-shouldered and stern, he cut an imposing figure. What is going on here? The moment felt frozen in time. Jade could see the questions flickering in the officer's eyes. Who would he believe? The scruffy stranger with a shadowed past? Or the woman whose very existence seemed a silent accusation to a world that had turned its back? I can help her. Jade pushed, desperation surging. She's lost. I don't know what happened, but she needs her mom. The officer's brow furrowed, weighing her words against the unrest brewing like a storm at sea. The man sneered at Jade, contempt spilling over his lips. You? Help her? You're nothing but a junkie in rags. This is none of your business. A ripple of gasps flowed through the crowd. Jade's heart sank. Could he be right? The biting truth of his words clawed at her, peeling back layers of doubt she fought so hard to cover. Leave her alone. The girl's voice rose above the chaos, fierce like a sudden gust of wind. Lifting her chin, she faced the man head-on. You don't care. I can feel it. For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the street, leaving only the sound of Jade's ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart in her ears. The officer turned slowly towards the girl. There was a flicker of understanding in his eyes that shone through his authority like a tiny beacon of hope. Where's your mom, sweetheart? Over there. The girl pointed, her eyes wide. In the building. But I can't find her. But the man wasn't done. She doesn't know what she is talking about. You can't trust her. The officer faced Jade again, green eyes flickering. Do you know anything about this? Are you just playing a sick game? I'm not. Jade pleaded, her voice rising in panic. I just met her. Someone was chasing her. The officer moved closer, narrowing his focus. Mayim, back up. You need to step away while we assess the suddenly. A loud crash echoed from the direction the girl pointed. Jade's heart stopped. No, it's her mother, she shouted, instinctively pulling the girl closer. Where? The officer barked, turning sharply. But before Jade could answer, the crowd parted, and out stepped a woman, frazzled hair and tear-stained cheeks, a frantic scream breaking the tension. Lila. The unrestrained love and panic in her voice set off a current that raced through Jade's body. Then, without warning, the stranger lunged again, reaching for the girl. In a heartbeat, the fragile balance shattered. Jade threw herself in front of Lila, shielding the child with her whole being. You will not take her, she screamed, every ounce of her fury erupting in that moment. The officer drew his weapon, but Jade could hardly notice, her breath catching in her throat, a feeling of impending disaster tightening its grip around them all. What would come next? Could Jade really protect the girl? And what would happen when the dust settled? Get back! The officer shouted, urgency vibrating in his voice. Lila clutched Jade's waist, eyes wide with fear. But what lay beyond that moment, that sheer raw instinct for protection, was a turning point neither could foresee. Would they escape the chaos? Or would something worse emerge from the shadows? The crowd felt like a living creature, reacting to every shift in the air. Jade's heart raced, her mind spinning. The tension twisted her stomach into knots as she stood fiercely protecting Lila. The woman behind them, who had just called her name in a voice laced with panic, seemed like the embodiment of chaos. Jade caught a glimpse of a face contorted with fear and desperation, but there was something else: determination. Lila, baby. Mommy's here. The frantic woman ran forward, her hands clawing through the air, eyes darting between Jade and the child. Jade's gut turned. It was a mix of instinct and something inexplicable that told her she couldn't let go. Not yet. What do you want with her? Jade snapped, her voice rising. She felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, raw and potent. The scruffy man moved again, eyes gleaming with malice, as if tasting victory. You're just a thief trying to steal this kid. Let her go? Back off. The officer positioned himself between the man and Jade. We're not playing games here. Lila, sweetheart, is this your mom? Yes. Lila yelled, her voice trembling. But her small face twisted in confusion. She didn't want me to go? Enough. The officer raised his weapon slightly, a warning shot across the frayed nerves of the gathering crowd. We're not losing any of you today. Jade could barely breathe, the chaos threatening to swallow her. She looked into Lila's wide eyes, searching for a hint of understanding. Lila, is she really your mom? In a heartbeat, the girl nodded. Yet doubt flickered in Jade's heart. Would this woman claim Lila and put her back in a harmless way? Why had she been so frantic? Before she could voice her fears, another crash erupted behind them. This time, it came from a nearby alleyway, a sound of glass shattering and tin cans clattering. Jade's instincts kicked in, a primal urge to protect Lila surged again. No, stay here, she yelled as she turned to see what it was. Just then, another man emerged from the shadows, his hood pulled low over his face. He stumbled forward, eyes wild and darting, as if a storm raged inside him. His breath was ragged, and panic radiated from his being. They're coming. There. Get back. The officer barked, shifting the focus of his weapon. You need to step away. Who are you? But Jade couldn't think. She was paralyzed between the approaching chaos and Lila's tiny, frightened form. If they were all in danger, how could she protect the girl? The mother lunged again, desperation bleed into every movement. Lila, come to me, please. The words dripped with urgency, filled with the weight of 1,000 emotions Jade couldn't decipher. But had she abandoned the girl to the arms of someone who might have been part of whatever dark chase had initiated all of this? Jade's fingers tightened around Lila, feeling the child's small heartbeat against her own. The girl's trust was palpable, but she was so small in the face of such overwhelming turmoil. Get back. The officer kept repeating, trying to restore order, but the crowd had begun to stir, growing restless and full of fear. Then came the sound, a low rumble that sent shivers down Jade's spine. It didn't just come from the alley anymore. It echoed from everywhere around them, filling the air with anxiety. Voices swelled, panic-infused whispers clawing for attention. The officer turned to Jade, eyes narrowing with an urgency that sent her heart racing again. "What do you know?" he pressed. "Tell me now." But before Jade could respond, everything imploded in a cacophony of shouts, cries, and chaos. "Mommy!" Lila's panic-stricken scream pierced through it all, and Jade felt her resolve shatter, knowing she was caught in a cataclysm unfolding right before her. But there was one thing she now knew: this moment might not just seal their fates, but unveil a truth that would change everything if they could survive the next few seconds. Who was coming for them? And what secrets were hiding in the turmoil of that darkened alley? The rumble intensified, reverberating through the crowd like a massive heartbeat, and Jade felt it tighten around her like a noose. In an instant, the world transformed into a blur of frantic faces and fear-soaked shouting. It was as if the very air had thickened with danger, and every breath was a battle against suffocating terror. "Stay close, Lila," Jade shouted, gripping the girl's hand tighter, her determination a shield against the wildness of the scene. The officer, his brow furrowed with distress, shifted his stance, aiming toward the alley from where the chaos had erupted. "I said get back." His voice cracked, authority faltering under the pressure of the unknown. But the mother didn't listen. She surged forward, desperation spilling into every plea. "Lila, please. I promise I'm sorry. Just come to me." The raw desperation in her voice split the noise around them, echoing in the hearts of everyone present. "Mommy!" Lila cried, the word a sweet whisper wrapped in a storm of terror, but doubt tainted her children's heart. Jade's instincts flared. Which direction was safer? Where could she deliver Lila from this nightmare? Without warning, the scruffy man lunged forward, a twisted grin cutting across his face as he shouted, "You're wasting your time. That kid is mine." A wave of anger coursed through Jade. "You don't know what you're talking about. Get away from us." Just then, the figure from the alley lurched forward, stumbling closer to them, breathless with fear. "We're running out of time. You don't understand. They're coming for all of us." His eyes met Jade's, his voice hoarse. "We have to leave now." Before she could process it, the crowd exploded into motion. People surged, pushing against each other, scrambling to escape the impending dread. The overwhelming tide of bodies threatened to pull Jade and Lila in different directions, and she fought to maintain her grip. Lila tugged on her hand. "I want my mommy. Stay with me. I can protect you." Jade pleaded, but panic gripped the child. The little girl's face twisted, confusion and fear striking deep within her. "Get her back," the officer shouted, but a sudden roar from the crowd drowned him out. There they were, shadows moving like a wave, crawling from the darkened alley, figures draped in hooded cloaks, their intentions veiled in hostility. Jade felt the urgency of the moment boil over. "Lila!" she screamed, tearing through the noise, her voice cutting through despair. "We need to go now." The officer took a step toward the advancing figures, his weapon unwavering, but its purpose unclear against the chaos swirling around them. "Move. Everybody move." Fear locked Jade in place, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. There was something unearthly about the figures creeping into the light, an aura that flickered with menace and darkness. "Lila!" she shouted again, desperation clawing at her throat, but the girl's eyes were transfixed on her mother, who surged forward like a moth to a flame. "Mommy!" In a heartbeat, the world shifted. Lila tore free, propelled toward the woman's outstretched arms. Jade's heart plummeted, her mind screaming at the injustice of what was happening. Trust shattered. "You can't." Jade lunged, but dread pooled in her stomach. Time moved like molasses as the figures closed in, tension electrifying the air. But as she reached for the girl, a commotion erupted behind her, a cacophony of shouts and screams. The officer's voice rose over the din. "Get back. Get them out." The darkness was nearer now, and Jade felt an overwhelming sense of dread consume her. Would Lila be lost in this chaos, swallowed by the shadows? The next moment, the officer's gun barked, a single shot piercing the tension, and everything froze in the snap of a finger. Jade's heart froze. Who had just crossed that line? And in the midst of it all, Who would she be if she lost Lila? Night was falling, but it was just the beginning of something more. What had been unleashed on this ordinary day? And more importantly, could they escape it? The noise hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating and heavy. Jade froze, every fiber of her being screaming for action. She felt the world blurring, shadows merging into one as chaos unfolded around her. The officer stood rigid, his gun raised, eyeing the approaching figures. "Get back!" He barked again, but it was drowned in the panic that rippled through the crowd like a tidal wave, pulling people away from safety and towards the darkness. Bodies collided. The scent of sweat and fear clung to the air. Lila's small frame was silhouetted against the flickering chaos as she darted forward. "Mommy!" The sound tore through Jade like a knife. Time bent and twisted, her instincts clashing with the reality that threatened to consume them both. "No!" Jade screamed again, lunging toward the little girl. She could see the mother, arms outstretched, fingers trembling in desperate anticipation. But Lila's eyes reflected confusion and fear, sparking a flicker of uncertainty within her that a series of whispers traveled through the crowd, quick, urgent murmurs of dread. "What are those things?" Someone gasped. "They're coming," another voice quivered, drowning in the tremors of hysteria. Jade's heart pounded like a war drum. Those cloaked figures, were they even human? Their movements were fluid, almost unnatural, a dark ballet creeping from the shadows. She gripped the child's hand tighter, looked deep into her wide, frightened eyes. "Lila, come here." The gunshot had sent shockwaves through the crowd, a crack of thunder against the storm. She remembered seeing the officer's face, etched with fear and determination. He was trying to protect them, but who could defend against what was looming? "Mommy!" Lila was a mere breath away from her, but the urgency dispersed her reality into fragments of a nightmare. Jade pushed through the bodies, every heartbeat drowning in fear. She could see Lila's mother frantically struggling through the tide, but the palms of terrified strangers shoved against her, blocking her path like a wall of despair. Suddenly, a figure from the shadows lunged forward, a cloaked hand shot out toward Lila. Jade's blood ran cold, a primal surge of panic igniting within her. She couldn't let this happen. "Stop!" she howled. Channeling every ounce of courage she had, she surged forward, her heart hammering in her chest. But before she could reach Lila, the officer halted her, spinning to face Jade. "You can't go out there. It's too dangerous." But Jade wouldn't be stopped. "Lila needs me." The officer's eyes widened, torn between duty and the helplessness he felt. He took a step, but behind them, the figures surged forward, their laughter a low, resonating echo sent chills down her spine. A veil of darkness descended around them, and in its grip, the air thinned with fear. With one last desperate shout, Jade pushed past the officer. She couldn't think of the risks. All that mattered was Lila. As she stumbled forward, she felt a tug on her shirt. A small hand caught her sleeve, the scruffy man from before, his face pale with distress. "You're making a mistake," he gasped, eyes wide. "They'll take you both." Jade's stomach churned. Confusion and rage flared within her. "Get away from me." In that moment, shadows loomed ever closer. Heavy figures swayed and flickered with malevolent intention, and the weight of dread pressed against her chest. She glanced back at Lila, who now stood frozen, torn between her mother's frantic arms and the shadows creeping ever closer. The officer's voice reverberated in her mind, "Get back." And Jade was suddenly aware of the magnitude of the danger. She felt the stakes tighten around her like a predator's grip. "Run!" she yelled to Lila, but time twisted cruelly again. The little girl remained, trapped in fear and indecision. Then, the air crackled as the cloaked figures crossed the threshold, a wave of darkness washing over the crowd, the lights flickering ominously above. The officer raised his weapon, intent on halting their advance, but with dread rising, Jade realized this wasn't just about them anymore. Whatever purpose those figures had, it was a threat that demanded more than just strength. It was a call to arms, a fight against the darkest forces. "Lila!" Jade screamed one last time, the bond of desperation between them palpable. In that moment, what would she choose to protect? As the shadows began to engulf the scene, Jade felt the insidious pull of despair, but within her, a flicker of defiance ignited, fueling her determination. What would happen next? Would even the darkest shadows be washed away in the light of love? Or would the encroaching darkness claim them all? Jade felt time slip through her fingers as her instincts exploded into raw determination. The cloaked figures closed in, their presence like a nightmare made flesh, growing thicker around Lila, who stood frozen, paralyzed by fear. In that fragile moment, Jade saw her daughter's mother, a woman torn between two worlds, her desperation reaching out like an open wound. Jade fought against the crowd, feeling the crush of bodies, the heat of fear radiating off her. "Lila, please," Jade shouted, but that small voice was barely a whisper against the symphony of terror surrounding them. Lila's wide eyes were filled with confusion, darting between the darkness and Jade. The shadows laughed again, deep and mocking, echoing across the chaos. Then, a figure stepped forward from the mass of black cloaks. It was taller than the rest, its features hidden beneath a hood that seemed to swallow the light. The laughter dwindled, replaced by a deathly silence that hung heavy in the air, paralyzing everyone. With a single, deliberate movement, the figure raised an arm, and tendrils of darkness slithered away from it, reaching hungrily toward Lila. "No," Jade's voice echoed, fierce and unyielding. She stumbled, reaching out as if she could physically pull her daughter from the clutches of the darkness. The officer was at her back now, shouting warnings, but it all blurred into a chaotic buzz as she surged forward, heart racing like a wild animal trapped in a cage. Dodging left and right, she pushed past strangers, each face taut with fear, eyes alight with confusion. She was inching closer, but the shadows twisted and turned, blocking her path like a monstrous wall. "Lila," she wailed, her throat raw with desperation. A flicker of movement caught her eye. It was Lila's mother, her features twisted in agony. The two women locked eyes, and for just a moment, they shared a silent understanding. They both knew what was at stake, a staggering balance between love and loss. True terror had a gravity that pulled them together, yet held them apart. "Lila, come to me," screamed the mother, arms outstretched, but Lila remained immobile, entrapped by fear. The shadows pulsed, an inky heartbeat against the panic. Then, the officer stepped forward, trying to carve out a path through the chaos. "Get back. You have to follow me," he yelled, aiming his gun high as if the weapon could fend off shadows. His voice trembled. Even he felt the weight of the lurking darkness creeping closer, the air thickening with dread. Jade could see the cloaked figure's hand inching toward Lila, the air crackling with a malevolence that struck like lightning in Jade's veins. In that moment, clarity cut through the storm in her heart. She glimpsed Lila, caught between two destinies, one filled with love, the other swallowed by shadow. "Don't you dare touch her," Jade roared, a fierce cry that surged from the depth of her soul. With newfound strength, she charged past the officer, shoving against the unseen resistance that held her back. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if startled by her defiance. Just as she reached Lila, a searing flash of light exploded around them. Jade shielded her eyes, feeling an energy surge through her body, a protective pulse that radiated warmth. When she opened her eyes again, the darkness writhing around them began to dissipate, revealing a clearer path. "Lila," Jade shouted once more, her heart pounding with the sound of hope against despair. But then, from the depths of the crowd, a chilling laughter rang out, a sound that seemed to vibrate through her bones. Jade's breath hitched. The cloaked figures were not yet done, and they were more powerful than she could have imagined. "Mommy!" Lila's voice broke through the tumult, a pleading echo that sent shockwaves through Jade. Would she reach her in time? Would the bond they shared be enough to fend off the shadows? Just then, as Jade reached for Lila with every ounce of strength, the darkness thickened, swirling dangerously close, and the air crackled with ominous energy. Could they escape the grasp of the encroaching horror, or would this moment seal their fates forever? The desperate questions clawed at Jade's mind as time seemed to stand still. Would love triumph over darkness, or would it spiral into the depths of despair? Jade's fingertips brushed against Lila's, and in that moment, the warmth from her daughter's hand sent a tremor of hope through her soul. The air thrummed with conflict, charged with energy, as the cloaked figures recoiled from the sudden light erupting from Jade's heart. "Lila, get behind me," Jade shouted, the protective instinct roaring in her chest. She twisted her body to shield her daughter from the encroaching darkness, feeling the weight of that shadowy presence pulling vigorously at them. Just as Lila stepped in close, a tendril snapped forward, fierce and biting. It coiled like a serpent aiming to strike. Jade gritted her teeth, adrenaline surging through her veins. She swung her arm back and thrust it into the inky mass. "Get away from her!" she screamed, her voice laced with fury. And then, inexplicably, a bright surge of energy pulsed through her. The darkness hissing as it retracted, as if frightened by the raw intensity that exploded within her. Jade's heart raced, the rhythm echoing in her ears like a drum of war. The officer yelled again, rallying the consciousness of the panicked crowd, urging them to flee, and yet she stood her ground. Because at that moment, it wasn't just fear driving her, there was something more profound, something that felt like destiny. From somewhere deep inside, a memory surged to life. A voice, soft and earnest, whispering in her mind, "Love conquers all, Jade." It was almost palpable, that faith, sweeping over her. She turned to Lila, desperation and love colliding in her chest. "You need to trust me, sweetheart." Lila nodded, eyes wide with fear, but there was a flicker and ember of bravery igniting in her gaze. An inky mist exploded from the malevolent figure, swirling thick and heavy. Jade felt a suffocating grip around her throat. "No," she gasped, fighting to breathe as her vision blurred from the onslaught of shadows, laughter echoing like a sinister wind. But with Lila clutched close, she found a well of strength she didn't know she had. Summoning it, she took a step forward, turning to face the cloaked figure with fire in her eyes. "We want to be taken by you. We choose to fight." The figure stepped back, surprised, as the shadows pulsed in response to her defiance. Jade felt the crowd churning behind her, their fear morphing into something else, strength, momentum. They were drawing together to rally behind her. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" shouted a voice from the depths of the throng. A surge of courage rippled through the people, pushing against the sinister shadows. A new energy sparked in the air, synchronizing with Jade's newfound resolve. The darkness began to claw backward, twisting and writhing in anguish. But still, that laughter echoed, piercing through the fragile space between hope and despair. Jade's gaze locked onto the cloaked figure, whose shadowy eyes glinted in the warped light. "More than a sacrifice, this is a choice," it hissed, its voice like glass breaking on a cold floor. "It's a choice we will always make." Jade countered, gripping Lila's hand tightly. The shadows recoiled again, a low growl rumbling in the air as they convulsed, losing their grip, yet the laughter grew louder. The last remnants of darkness reached for Lila, desperation clawing at their edges. Jade felt terror mix with determination in her chest as she lunged forward, the light deep inside her igniting even more fiercely. "This is our fight," she declared with a heart pounding in tempo, feeling the collective spirit of the crowd rallying behind her, igniting a force against the encroaching despair. With each heartbeat, the shadows wavered, but they weren't done. No, they would fight for every inch they could claim. And Jade knew their battle was far from over, the hard truth clinging to her like a shadow. The moment wasn't just about saving her daughter. It was about standing against the tide of an ancient evil that wouldn't go quietly. Then a blinding flash erupted, and Jade's breath caught in her throat as she realized the game was about to shift again. What darkness would greet them in the next heartbeat? Would they shatter the stranglehold of dread? Or would the shadows consume everything she loved? The echoes of their destiny danced on the edge of the abyss, and with it came a question begging to be answered. The blinding light enveloped them, vast and burning. Jade squeezed Lila's hand tighter, as though that connection could ground them against the chaotic swirl around them. It felt like standing at the edge of a volcano ready to erupt, anticipation thick in the air. Then it faded. The darkness receded, but not entirely. It shifted, reshaped itself, coiling around the masked figure like a second skin. Its eyes, deeper than any pit, locked onto Jade's. "You think this light can protect you?" It taunted, a cold smirk cracking the shadows of its visage. The crowd fell silent, tension and fear suspending every breath. Jade felt it too, a wave of doubt creeping in. Could they actually win this fight? Her heart raced, but she wouldn't let them see her falter. "You underestimate us," Jade shouted, her voice ringing with defiance. The people around her stirred, a collective pulse of energy rising. They had begun to recognize that they were more than just bystanders. They were warriors in this moment. The figure's laughter penetrated the air, chilling and relentless. "Warriors, you say? Just think, when the light fades, what darkness can manipulate?" Jade felt Lila's grip tighten as her daughter pressed against her side. In her eyes, Jade saw the glimmer of fear, but also courage mirroring her own. "Stay close, sweetheart," Jade whispered, feeling the weight of her promise echo in her heart. Then, without warning, the darkness darted forward again, aiming straight for Lila. Jade reacted instinctively, stepping in front of her daughter just as tendrils of shadows whipped past her shoulder, searching for purchase and slipping through her fingers cold and grasping. "No," Jade bellowed, summoning every ounce of strength. In response, she felt that flicker of light inside her surge again. "You shall not have her." A blinding flash erupted once more, filling the air with radiant warmth. It washed over Lila, enveloping her in safety. The darkness shrieked, recoiling like a wounded beast. Jade struck, the energy spiraling outward as she pulled from the strength of every heartbeat, every anguished cry from within the crowd. "Together," she cried, "we are stronger than fear." The crowd surged forward, a wave against the darkness. They raised their voices, an anthem of rebellion against despair. "Together," they shouted. Shockwaves of light shot forth from their souls, connecting in brilliant bolts that sliced through the shadows. "You fools!" the cloaked figure shrieked, hovering back as the force formed a barrier of shimmering light. "You know not the cost of your defiance." But Jade didn't flinch. "We know only the cost of our silence." And with that, she thrust her hand forward, directing the light to form a shield around them. But just as they seemed to gain momentum, the laughter returned louder and more menacing than before. Waves of darkness surged, rippling like an ocean storm. Jade's heart pounded as they pressed against the wall of light, thinning it with every push. The collective fear swirled in the air, palpable, and cracks began to splinter through Jade's shield. "Lila!" Jade shouted, panic clawing at her consciousness. She could feel the ground beneath her feet shifting. "Stay behind me." But the shadows weren't the only threat. What felt like an earthquake rocked the ground, and Jade stumbled back. The crowd gasped, veering as cracks split the pavement, threatening to swallow them whole. In that chaos, Jade's gaze met Lila as her daughter was no longer cowering. She stood firm, her tiny shoulders squared, an unwavering light amidst the encroaching darkness. "Mommy, we can't give up," Lila urged, voice strong as she reached for her mother, her innocence somehow igniting fierceness in Jade's chest. "Fight!" Jade roared as she met Lila's grasp. There was something fractured in this moment, yet profound. But the laughter echoed louder, rising like a storm. Shadows coiled tighter, the figure flaring. "You think you can just choose not to be consumed? You're wrong. I will take what is mine." As the ground trembled beneath them, Jade could feel it the weight of memories, heartache, consequences. What could they lose? How far would they go? With one last desperate look at Lila, Jade knew it was time to find a final answer to the question hanging in the air. Then, amid the chaos, a figure melted from the shadows, an entity forged from the darkness itself, swirling with malice. Who was this new foe? What other layers of horror awaited as they fought to reclaim their love and prevent the shadows from spreading? Jade's heart thrummed, and she hitched her breath, standing resolute at the edge of the abyss. And as that dark figure approached, she felt a gust of wind whip through, invigorating something powerful was about to unfold. But what price would they pay for it? Would they rise as victors or fall prey to the looming threat? The darkness quivered, reeling from the combined force of Jade's fierce love for Lila and the righteous anger of the crowd. Each pulse of light from their collective strength pushed back against the ominous figure creeping closer. It laughed, a cruel sound dripping with malice, but fear began to flicker in its eyes. Perhaps they were stronger, together. Together. Jade shouted again, her voice becoming a rallying cry. She envisioned what being together meant, not just a crowd, but a family formed from the ashes of despair. With renewed vigor, she looked down at Lila, whose small hand felt like a lifeline. We can do this, she whispered fiercely. We fight for love. We fight for hope. In that instant, the shadows coiled tighter around them, as if sensing the shift in the air. Jade felt the gravity of the moment weighing her down. The stakes had never been higher. The officer stood tall against the darkness, a guardian of unity amidst chaos. Just then, the figure lunged towards Lila, shadows gaping like a vast mouth. With instincts sharper than any blade, Jade stepped forward, blocking its path. You want her? You'll have to go through me, she yelled, her body trembling but rooted in place. Foolish woman. The figure snarled, darkness swirling like a furious tide. But as it advanced, the radiant light from the crowd surged, forcing it back, halting its advance. The laughter faded slightly, fear cracking its composure. That's right. One voice rose above the rest, an old man from the crowd, his voice quaking but steady. We're done being afraid. We are here for our sisters, our brothers, our daughters. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, each word strengthening the bond forged in that moment. Mommy, Lila cried out, eyes wide with determination. Jade's heart swelled. The tiny girl had taken on her own spirit. We can beat them together. Lila echoed her mother's sentiments, her voice sharp and clear, fueling Jade's conviction. A deep breath surged through Jade as she placed her other hand over Lila's, their energy weaving together in a radiant light. Let us show them the power of love, Jade shouted, feeling every heart around hers thumping in unity. But the figure wasn't done yet. It recoiled, darkness shimmering in anger, drawing upon the shadows swirling behind it. You will regret this defiance, it growled, but something was different. The shadows whispered, crumbling under the unrelenting power of hope. Not today, Jade roared, and with that, she exploded forward, a bright light erupting from within. The crowd surged behind her, arms raised. Voices united, a powerful anthem to crush despair. Just as the darkness lunged, trying to reclaim its power, Jade struck with everything she had. We choose love, she declared, and as the energy arced from her fingertips, a brilliant beam shot forth. It illuminated the street, dispelling the shadows like dawn breaking through the night, chasing the terrifying figure back into the depths from which it emerged. With one final wisp of darkness, the figure twisted and wailed, its power dissipating under the radiant light. A shockwave erupted around them, as the crowd erupted into cheers and gasps. The looming fear lifted, revealing a sense of freedom and safety that had been hard-fought. In the aftermath, as the last remnants faded into nothing, Jade dropped to her knees, pulling Lila into her arms. We did it, baby, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. A mix of relief and joy flooded her heart. Lila clung tightly, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. I knew you would protect me, she said, voice warm against the chill of the night. Jade felt a lump rise in her throat. Around them, the crowd wrapped in warmth and connection, filled with newfound hope. The officer approached, sweat glistening on his brow, a look of awe written across his face. I've never seen anything like it, he breathed, relief washing over him. Thank you for being here, Jade said, looking at him with gratitude, as tears of joy danced in her eyes. We couldn't have done it without all of you. The crowd began to disperse, glancing around as if seeing their world anew. There was laughter and relief, new friendships forming in the embrace of what they had just endured together. Jade felt a shift in herself, a lightness that hadn't existed before. With Lila in her arms, she stood amidst the remnants of the heart-wrenching night. She was no longer just a shadow in the background. She had become a force to reckon with, a beacon of hope for herself and Lila. And as they began to walk away from the chaos, hand in hand, Jade knew that this was only the beginning. Together, they would navigate whatever came next, but above all, they would live bravely together. Always, she turned to Lila, her heart swelling with love. Let us go home, sweetheart. Mommy, I love you, Lila said softly. I love you too, my beautiful girl, Jade replied, voice thick with emotion, always. And in that moment, under the light of newfound hope, the shadows lost their hold, for they were no longer just survivors. They were warriors of love, ready to face the world together. You need to subscribe now to catch the next heartwarming stories that will uplift your spirits. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm's fire. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about what just happened and how it moved you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need this hope-filled conclusion in their lives. This is the moment to show your support. Together we rise.